Hi, I'm Konstantin Baum, Master of Wine, and today I want to do a deep dive into a very special region together with you. I just wrapped up hosting a tasting of some of the best Pinot Noirs of Sonoma in California, and I was blown away by the quality of some of them, so I thought it might be nice to just share them with you and talk a little bit about the region. I hope you agree. Anyways, let's go. Pinot is conquering the world, and in California it has really gained ground over the last few decades. It was the 5th most planted grape variety in 2007, and it's the 3rd most planted grape variety today, having almost doubled in size since then. Everyone agrees that there is a Pinot boom, and most people agree that it is because of the movie Sideways, which is still really strange to me.
Oh, its flavors, they're just the most haunting and brilliant and thrilling and subtle.
Pinot in California is mainly planted in the cooler regions along the coast, and this is where Sonoma comes into play. Sonoma County covers the area north of San Francisco, and it is the cooler neighbor of Napa Valley. While the north of Sonoma can also get quite hot and is home to Cabernet Sauvignon and Zinfandel, the south is generally considered to be cool, and it's one of the best places to grow Pinot in the state. Why is the south warmer than the north, you might wonder? Well, it's all about the influence of the Pacific, but let me show you on my map. The Pacific brings cold water from the North Pole to the shores of the Golden State, and in most areas this influence is actually blocked by the mountains running from north to south, except for an area near the city of Petaluma where there is a gap, the Petaluma Gap. The cold air therefore flows into the south of Sonoma and then goes up the valleys to the north, so the influence of the cold Pacific winds is less significant in the north than it is in the south. Pretty much exactly half of the 23,600 hectares are planted to Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, but today I want to focus on the smooth and velvety king of the region, PN. So let's dive into the wines, the regions, the terroirs, and the people. I'm ready. So I'm going to work my way inland from the Pacific, and this is from Fort Ross-Seaview, an AVA at the coast. Beautiful setting. The vineyards are oftentimes in the mountains surrounded by forests, and you get a lot of Pacific influence here, so it's pretty cold, pretty rough, and pretty beautiful. So the wines from the so-called true Sonoma Coast are oftentimes lighter in color, are very aromatic and complex and delicate, and have more structure. And this is due to the climatic conditions in this area. You just have more rain, it's just colder, fresher, and you therefore feel that in the wine as well. So I'm going to start with the 2019 Red Car Estate Vineyard Pinot Noir from Fort Ross-Seaview that retails for around $75 US. So Red Car started off in 2000 producing Syrah in a garage in Los Angeles, and then one of their wines got a really high score by Wine Spectator, and all of a sudden things exploded for them. Their estate vineyard is 300 meters above sea level, 6 kilometers away from the Pacific coast, and they're mainly using Dijon clones, so clones that come from Burgundy that produce really small and aromatic Pinot grapes. I'm getting out my big Pinot glasses for this tasting because I think the wines deserve it. I don't know how well you can see it, but the color is fairly light, so I can see my fingers through the wine. And on the nose, it's very aromatic. There are notes of raspberry, cherries, a little bit strawberries as well. The oak is there, but it's well integrated. And on the palate, it's velvety, rich, with structured tannins in the end. So there's definitely quite a lot of grip there. The wine is still young, so it needs a little bit of time to really mellow out, but it's quite nice. They've only used 10% new French oak, so there's not too much oaky flavor here. And they've used 70% of stems, which basically means that they've added a little bit more structure, a little bit more spiciness to the wine. And I think this is really well made. I'm going to rate this wine 93 points. I think it represents its origin really well. It is Californian, but it's more on the cool side, so it brings in a little bit more freshness, a little bit more delicacy, and yeah, it's just really, really good. The next wine is classified as Sonoma Coast AVA, and the Sonoma Coast AVA is a lobster-shaped AVA that covers quite a lot of ground. It was basically designed because people said that all of those areas along the coast, but also further inland, are influenced by the Pacific winds, so it goes as far as Carneros, quite far in the east of Sonoma. There are people today that argue that Sonoma Coast should only be restricted to the vineyards along the Pacific. I'm not going to go too deep into this. I can see both sides here. This wine here, though, comes from the area right on the Pacific, and it's made by a pioneering estate. It's the 2016 Hirsch San Andreas Fault Pinot Noir, and it retails for around $75. Hirsch was founded by David Hirsch in 1980, and if you want to learn more about his life, and it's truly amazing, listen to I'll Drinks to That episode with David Hirsch. I'll probably link it up down below. Today it's run by Jasmine Hirsch, who is also one of the pioneers of her generation. She has co-founded A Pursuit of Balance, and she's really trying to push balanced, more elegant wines in California, which is a good thing. Today the estate has 30 hectares of vineyards that are managed biodynamically, and they are very hands-off when it comes to winemaking. They don't want to add too much stuff, and they don't want to remove too much. So the wines tend to be quite interesting, quite expressive, quite different. The wine is named after the San Andreas fault line that runs through the state. It's basically where the North American plate rubs against the Pacific plate. And this fault line you can actually see from up above. It brings volcanic activity into the region, earthquakes, but it also brings quite a mix of different soil types and different stones into the region. Again, the color of this is fairly light, so I can see my fingers through it, and it is more aged. So you have more tertiary aromas coming through. You got cherry notes here, a little bit of cherry jam even. There are raspberry notes as well. It is a little bit spicy. It's by no means old, but it shows a little bit of age. You can also see that in the color. It's a little bit garnet in color, some garnet reflexes. On the palate, it's round and velvety with lots of freshness in the finish. So the tannins have mellowed away a little bit because of the maturation, I assume. And it's just perfect right now. While the wine is more drinkable right now, it is a little bit less concentrated, a little bit less complex than the previous wine. I gotta add that this is not the top wine from the Hirsch estate. They have better single vineyard wines that are more expressive, more concentrated. I'm going to rate this 92 points. It's really good, really beautiful. And this is for drinking now. We're moving further inland, and now we're in Russian River AVA. Russian River is the most famous AVA for Pinot Noir in Sonoma, I would say, but it's quite diverse. The areas to the south, where Green Valley is, for example, are pretty cool, very much influenced by the Pacific, while the areas further up north, around Hillsburg, are a lot warmer. They bring out more concentration and more richness. So Russian River AVA as such doesn't necessarily always give you an exact impression of what is to be expected. The wines can be quite concentrated and rich, but they can also be beautiful, complex, and multi-layered. So Russian River was first founded in 1983. It covers quite a lot of ground in Sonoma County, and the landscape is less dramatic. So you have those soft rolling hills and beautiful landscapes, but also more viticulture. So it's more developed than the areas along the Pacific. In Russian River, the fog also plays an important role. The fog coming from the Pacific and the San Pablo Bay, and riding from the south to the north, going into the valleys and shielding the vineyards from sunlight and keeping the freshness, the cool temperatures in the vineyards for longer in the morning. This means that those vineyards that get a lot of fog generally have a prolonged ripening period. So here we have one of the absolute classics from the region, the 2019 William Selyem Rochioli Riverblock Vineyard that retails for around $200. The winery was founded in 1979 by Bert Williams and Ed Selyem, and their 1985 Rochioli Vineyard Pinot Noir won the state prize, and that really changed things for them. All of a sudden they realized they can be one of the best producers of Pinot in California. So this vineyard is really important for them and for the history of California. And it is pretty close to the estate. They purchased the fruit. The vines are from 1989, so pretty old vines. They get quite a lot of new oak. I think 69% of the barrels are new. but you don't really feel that in the wine, but I'm getting ahead of myself. They also don't like to use pumps, and they try to stay away from filtration. And the wine is just super expressive. For me, this is the essence of Russian River. It shows quite a lot of black cherry flavor. It's much more intense and aromatic than the previous wines. There is quite a lot of concentration there. I also get a little bit of Coca-Cola. I often get that in Russian River wines. Tends to have this slightly caramelly flavor profile to them. On the palate, the wine is really rich and velvety and concentrated. Without being fat, it has a fresh and vibrant finish. There's so much concentration here, but it's really well made. I mean, everything is in balance. The finish is also very long. This is not a shy wine. It's rich and opulent, and it shows where it's from. It's not Burgundy, it's Russian River Valley, and I really like it. I'm going to rate it 96 points. So beautiful, beautiful wine. We're moving further inland to Carneros, which translates to the Rams. It was founded in 1983. Originally, it was the hotbed of the sparkling wine industry, but today it's really famous for Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. It is an area that is further inland. It's basically split. You have some part that belongs to Sonoma, the other part belongs to Napa. It can be a little bit warmer, but it has quite a lot of influence from the Pacific, and you get a lot of fog coming from the San Pablo Bay in Carneros, so it's not that easy. So here we are in a fairly flat area at 0 to 120 meters above sea level, and a little known fun fact is that the Windows XP Bliss background that we probably all know was shot in this area. I'm tasting the 2018 Schug Carneros Estate Pinot Noir that retails for around $60 US. The winery was founded roughly 40 years ago by Walter Schug, who came from the Rheingau and was in a family that was producing Pinot Noir in the Rheingau. He came to California and then became the winemaker for Joseph Phelps and was a very important figure in the development of Californian wine. The winery is today run by Axel and Claudia Schug, and true to their German heritage, they actually hired a German winemaker named Johannes. The wine was fermented in stainless steel and it matured in barriques, in French barriques, for 16 months, and 35% of the barriques were new. French barriques are the by far most common vessel for maturing premium Pinot Noir in the US, in California. There are not many US oak vessels used for Pinot Noir, the best Pinot Noirs at least in Sonoma. So as we are further away from the coast, the wines from Carneros tend to be a little bit riper, but not necessarily much riper than the wines from Russian River Valley. It also depends on picking date, so when you're going to harvest the grapes. For me, this feels a little bit more black cherry character, but you don't have the Coca-Cola component here. You have great structure, grippy tannins, really good freshness. So the wine is a little bit more rich than the wines from the coast, but a little bit less rich than the previous wine. It's, well, really balanced. It's a pretty classic style. I think this is actually the closest to Burgundy out of all of the four wines. But yeah, I think if you are a really good taster, you can still get into Carneros with this one. But I actually think the wine has a little bit less complexity than the previous wines. I would rate it 91 points. It's really smooth and really appealing, but yeah, a little bit less complex, I'd say. So in summary, I'm going to say these wines are really interesting. I think Sonoma shows quite a lot of terroir, so the wines really feel very different depending on where they are grown. I think my favorite in this tasting, just quality-wise, is the William Selyem, a real classic and a pretty blockbuster Pinot, but made in a really good way, very balanced, even though there's quite a lot of concentration. So thank you for watching. If you liked this episode, then please like it down here, subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is, what is your favorite Pinot from Sonoma? Let me know down below. If you haven't had one, then let me know that as well down below. I hope I see you guys again soon. I'll have so much Pinot to drink. I think I need to get some venison. But you stay thirsty.